Has anybody here experienced Godspeed? Godspeed.
No speed at all.
What is Godspeed?
Fast.
Godspeed means fast. Is that what it means? Godspeed is a measure of time. Is that what it is? Come on, guys. Any fact check over here? Check Godspeed. Let's check what Godspeed actually means.
Hey Siri, what does Godspeed mean?
Godspeed definition: an expression of good wishes to a person starting a journey. See, I'm faster than Google. An expression of
No, you're faster than Siri.
good wishes to a person starting a journey. That's what Godspeed means. It's a bit of a funny word, right?
Yeah.
I wish you Godspeed.
Also, that God should go with you.
Just say,
It's a bit of a funny expression, but we do think of it as a measure of time, as we say that. Yeah, we say that it is. May God. We think of it as like, God is with your journey, so to speak, right? Either way, it originates from some idea, probably in the Weekly Torah Portion, because in the Weekly Torah Portion we have the longest narrative repetition in the Torah. The longest narrative in the Torah is actually the story of Joseph, which is the entire second half of the book of Genesis. We're not there yet. But in this week's Torah portion, Parshas Chayei Sarah, we start off with, page 132, 133. We start off with Sarah just passes away. So what happens then is that Abraham's going to bury her. And as soon as he buries her, he realizes that he needs to marry off his son, Isaac. He has one and only son. So what he does is that he dispatches him off to his niece's home, the home of his brother's daughter.
Before you get to there,
It's great news.
There's one more piece of evidence why the Jews own the land of Israel, because he buys the cemetery plot for Sarah and it's
In Hebron. Hebron is probably one of the most disputed. Hebron is probably one of the most disputed pieces of land on planet Earth. Hebron, as is the entire land of Israel. I mean, from the river to the sea, they're calling for absolute genocide, right? Whilst blaming us Jews of committing genocide, in the very same breath, they're calling for genocide. So we're denying genocide. We're the worst genocide committers on earth, by the way, because Israel started in 1948, modern state with 156,000 Arabs, and today there's 1.6 million. So if we're doing genocide, we're really, really bad at. We're like a reverse genocide. They're prospering, right, but we're still doing genocide, right? But in the very same breath, they're saying from the river to the sea, which means, Ben Shapiro the other day, he was being heckled in I don't know where in Oxford University. So they said to him, "Free Palestine." So he says, "Which part? Which part of Palestine would you like free?" "Oh, the whole thing, from the river to the sea." Which means your genocidal claim of absolutely wiping out every last Jew, God forbid, in the land of Israel is exactly what you're talking about, right? So you can't make this stuff up. This is deranged. It's extreme far left, which matches with which goes a goose step with extreme far right, I guess, which is part of pro-Hamas. It's unbelievable. But when you actually bring in the facts to the table, which has nothing to do with the influencing of these people's minds, facts have absolutely no bearing, then you see, yeah, you're 100% correct, Rob.
Confuse me with the facts.
Yeah, facts. That's when you're 100% correct, because this is the title deed of Hebron. We bought it for full cash. They wanted to give it to us for free. We said no. We said no, thank you. By the way, this Shabbos in Hebron, every year there's a major event of tens of thousands of Jews that come to the Hebron, to the tomb of the patriarchs, and they read this parsha as in celebration of the eternal gift ownership of the Jewish people in the land of Hebron. Interesting, I often share the story of Rabbi Israel Meir Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel, who came to visit David Ben Gurion in his kibbutz Sde Boker, and he asked him if it's true that they went before the Peel Commission in England in 1937. Thank you, 1937, when they were trying to figure out how to divide the land which was then known as Palestine. to divide it amongst the Jews and the Arabs. So the Arabs were laying claim, it's our land, it's our land, it's our land. So he came up and he said, actually, it's our land because, we've been living here for 3,500 years nonstop. And our title deed is in the Torah, the Bible. So Rabbi Lau asked him if this is true, that he said it in front of Lord Pio, and he said, yeah, achen. He said, emet v'yatziv, were his words. Emet v'yatziv, which is quoted from the Siddur, the right at the end of the Shema. We say, emet v'yatziv, true and certain. So then Rabbi Lau says to him, if somebody came to you looking for a title deed of your home, and he asks you, where's the title deed of your home? Because he lays claim to your home. And you bring him some piece of paper which is torn, covered in dirt and feces. It's soiled, it's tattered, and you showed he has my title deed. What would he say to you? Would you accept that in a court of law?
Can't read it? No.
As the man we go before a court of law, determine whether it's
Right.
viable.
Well, said Rabbi Lau to Ben Gurion, who famously declared that the constitution of the land of Israel, of the modern state of Israel, will replace the code of Jewish law. That's what he said, right? How do you expect that claim to hold water? Your title deed, it was in front of the Turks, it was called a kushtan. In front of the Turks, it was the Arabs, it was a kushtan, which means a title deed. This is our kushtan. Kushtan in Arabic means truth, or in Aramaic, it means truth. This is your verification. It's your authenticity. If your authenticity is tattered and scratched and broken and torn because you don't observe the Torah, you make fun of the Torah, you disgrace the Torah, then how do you expect anybody to respect that title deed, right? This is what it boils down to, right? You're 100% right there, Rob. Anyways, what I wanted to bring your attention to was how Abraham sends his servant Eliezer to go and find a wife for his son Isaac. Isaac is already a big boy. He's 37 years old. And he asks him to go bring him a wife from his great nieces. Abraham has a brother called Haran. Oh, Nahor. So Nahor had a son called Betuel. And Betuel had a daughter called Rivka. I believe that's how it goes. You got that little family tree here in page 129, if you want to see the family tree. Betuel had a daughter here. Yeah, Nahor. You see the family tree at the very end of last week's Torah portion, where Abraham's brother was Nahor. Nahor had a son called Betuel in verse 22, and Betuel had a daughter in verse 23, a daughter Rebecca. She's worthy and fit to be Isaac's wife. That's it, right? So now he's going to look for this wife. Now what happens is that Abraham gives him a tremendous amount of resources to go and get this wife. And here we start this incredibly long narrative, which I'm just going to read through with you on page 139. We'll try to figure this out together. Let's go to page 137. Actually, we'll do quite a bit of reading, so put in your seatbelts, okay? Right. Page 137. Instead, you must go to my former land, to Haran, the place where my family still lives, and take a wife from amongst them for my son Isaac. Who was this? This would be, where's Haran? Haran is Iraq. Remember, Abraham left Iraq to go to the promised land in portion of Lech Lecha, go forth. He went from Iraq to the promised land. Now he's sending Eliezer to go back to Iraq, to the Euphrates, to find him a wife from his great niece. Even though I've been away from my family for 65 years in the distance, has prevented me from influencing them directly. They are nonetheless scions of the royal firstborn line of Shem. You know who Shem was? He was the son of Noah. Shem is the Semites, right? Semites, anti-Semites, this is Shem. Shem is the son of Noah, and have inherited its aristocratic upbringing, noble gentility, family traditions and teachings. The servant said to him, perhaps the woman will not wish to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land from which you departed? Maybe I'll take him with me. After all, if you prefer, I take a wife from Isaac, from amongst your family members rather than from amongst the people whom you have been influencing and living with for the past 65 years. Then it should not matter where the couple live afterwards. Abram said to him, be most careful not to take my son back there. The reason he didn't want to take his son back there is because Isaac was offered as an offering upon the altar last week. And when you offer it as an offering upon the altar, you're not allowed to leave the Holy Land. There's a law associated with offerings that are brought upon the altar, the meat of the offerings. Aren't allowed to leave Jerusalem, aren't allowed to leave Israel. So Abraham considered his son Isaac as an offering that was not allowed to leave the land of Israel. I had a grandfather like this, my father's father. They would always say about him that he's holy like Isaac, and he doesn't leave the promised land. He never came to visit us in South Africa. We always had to go visit him because it was like a real thing for him. He really felt that he could not leave the borders of the Holy Land. Very interesting, right? True, I would prefer that my daughter-in-law be of my family's lineage, but lineage alone does not suffice. When she and my son marry, they must go together in a fitting environment, which is not to be found anywhere else but here in the Holy Land. Although it is true that the people of this land only pay lip service to God's involvement in human affairs, at least they do that. In contrast, the people where I used to live consider God as only the God of heaven. Although I did convince them of his existence, I did not succeed in convincing them that he is involved with human affairs. So Abraham was influencing the world to become monotheists, to believe in one power. Back in Iraq, they believed in God as the God of the heavens, but not as the God of earth. Here, at least, my students believe as God as the God of earth, at least in lip service. At least their mouth believes it, not their heart, right? This is how they conceived of God when he took me away from my father's house in Haran, and all the more so when he took me away from the land of my family, or of the Kastites. Page 136. And this is how they still conceive of him. However, moreover, God spoke concerning me and even swore to me in the covenant between the halves, saying, to your offspring I will give this land, clearly indicating that my son should remain here. I'm therefore confident that he will send his angel before you to orchestrate events to your advantage in advance. That's pretty cool, by the way, having God's angel before you, right? With his help, you will take away my son from there. Okay, he doesn't agree to send them over. I'm going to skip a little bit here. Oh, no, let's go to the top here to page 139. So the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and he swore to him regarding this. Yeah, there's a euphemism over here. He held on to his bris. Why did he hold on to his bris? Because the bris was his only godly command. This was his only godly command. No other physical object on this earth had been given an explicit divine command. So this was a mitzvah object, his bris. So you had him hold his bris to swear like you swear in a Torah, right? Swear in a Bible. He swore in the only holy object that he had, which was his bris. The servant then took 10 of his master's camels. I'm just going to read only the boldface because it can take me way too long. And set out with all his master's wealth in his hand. He had a document, right? He rose up and made his way to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nahor. Now it was a 17-day journey, okay? I don't know how long it takes to walk from Beersheba to Iraq. We should put it on Google and Waze, see how long it takes on the walk option, the Google Maps. But apparently it takes 17 days. I never tried it. So as he arrived, Eliezer made the camels kneel outside the city near a well of water at evening time when the women go out to draw water. He said, "O God, God of my master, arrange events for me this day, such that you could grant a favor to my master Abraham." So he starts praying. The minute Eliezer gets there, he starts praying. Here I stand by the spring of water, and the daughters of the townsmen are coming out to draw water. He had no idea who this Rivka gal was, right? Let it be that the maiden to whom I say, please tilt your pitcher so that I may drink. And she replies, drink, and I will also give waters to your men and camels. She will be the one whom you have designated for your servant Isaac. You're saying, God, listen, make it easy for me. Don't make me look for the girl. Don't make me look for a date, okay? Have the date come to me, and this is going to be the code. I'm gonna ask who can, if a girl to give me water to drink, and if she says, not only will I give you to drink, but also your men and your camels, that's the one. It's a good neshama, right? She will be a fitting match because her demonstration of considerateness and generosity will prove that she's worthy of becoming a part of Abraham's household. Thus, I will know that through her that you have acted kindly with the master. He had not yet finished speaking when skip.
3-year-old girl.
When 3-year-old Rebecca came out. She had been born to Bethuel, the youngest son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. Her pitcher was on her shoulder. The maiden was of very beautiful appearance. She was still a virgin, whom no man had known carnally in any way. She went down to the spring, she filled the pitcher, and came back up. Okay, I'm going to turn the page. 141. The servant ran to water and said, if you would let me sip a little water from your pitcher. She said, drink, sir, and quickly lowered a pitcher from her shoulder onto her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him to drink, she said, let me draw water for your men and camels too. Ooh, there we go. Until they have drink their full. Now, I've never tried to quench the thirst of a camel, but something tells me that it's going to take a while. And if you had 10 of them, that sounds like a lot of running back to the trough.
20 years old by then.
Yeah, that sounds like a major operation. I mean, it sounds like you need like a little mini factory for that. She quickly emptied her pitcher into the trough and ran to the well again to draw water, and she drew water for all of his men and camels. Seeing that Rebekah had performed precisely those acts that he had requested from God, that she performed as a sign that she was a suitable wife for Isaac, the man wondered about her if she would also prove to be from Abraham's family. He thought silently to himself, wanting to know whether or not God had made his journey successful. That would have been the sign. If she was from Abraham's family, that was the bullseye, right? But his doubts were outweighed by the confidence that he had in Abraham's merits and his reliance on Abraham's promise that God would prearrange success in advance. So this guy was uber confident. He said, listen, if Abraham told me the angel is going out before me, Abraham's a good guy, he's got God's merits. He didn't even worry about whether she's of the right lineage. When the camels had drank their full, the man took a gold nose ring weighing a beka and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 gold shekels for her arms, and he gave them to her. That's a nice tip, right?
Nose ring, you can keep it.
You don't like nose rings? A gold nose ring and a weight of beka. It's like a weight. He said, whose daughter are you? After he gave it to her. If you would tell me if there's room in your father's house for us to spend the night. I mean, he's really pushing it here, right? Yeah. Right? So she says, answering his questions in the order in which they were asked, she said, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. Bingo. This is the great niece of Abraham. She then said, we have plenty of straw and fodder as well as a place to spend many nights. You want one night? We got many nights for you. Hearing this, the man bowed his head and prostrated himself to God. So this is the story. I mean, this is how you pick up a date, the first date in Torah, right? So what do you look for in a wife?
3 years old.
Well, let's talk about the 3-year-old thing for a moment. Just for a moment, let's talk about the 3-year-old thing. I mean, she was a virgin. I mean, seriously? I mean, the 3-year-old today and the 3-year-old then must have been very different. She was watering. She was walking around with pitchers of water. She was taking care of the 10 camels. She was communicating. It sounds to me like this 3-year-old was today's 13-year-old or 18-year-old. Right. Maybe puberty was like a little bit different in those days and some sort of fast forward something. But they became of marriageable age at 3. So in other words, the fact that the Torah needs to say, I know this is a bit of a stretch. This is one of those spots in Torah, which is a little bit PC. I understand. I would just answer it by saying that the fact that the Torah needs to say that she was a virgin tells you that you're obviously dealing with some different kind of puberty. Remember, Abraham was 137 years old at this time, right?
So maybe time was just a little different. Yeah.
Well, but if it's
I mean,
different-
you don't have a problem with somebody living 900 years. You have a problem here with a 3-year-old.
I mean, time is.
Rob, it's like I was talking to one big developer here in town this last week. He's like, he has no problem, believes in God, no problem. God created the world, no problem. But I was talking to him about Israel being the land that God gave us in the Torah, right? You got to say that. You have to say that our only claim to the land of Israel is that God created the world and He gave us the land, right? Because any other claim is not going to hold water, right? So he says, Rabbi, you know that I can't accept that God wrote the Torah. And then I said to him, I'm like, okay, so God created the universe, heaven and earth, Milky Way, everything, no problem. But that He wrote a book, that He's a writer too, now you're pushing it, Rabbi, right? Like, what are you talking about, man? What the problem is that I said to him, it's not that you don't think that God is great. The problem is that you don't think that you are great. That's the problem. Of course, you know that God is great, that He can create the world. But the fact that God would write a book for you, that's the part you can't accept. You just don't believe that God thought that you're valuable enough for Him to write a book for you as a Jew, right? And we have to man up. We have to grow up, guys. This is crazy. You know, there's a war going on. We're fighting for our lives. There's our second war of independence. We have to stand up to our children and grandchildren. You know, those extreme far left liberal ones, those ones, you know. We have to stand up to the pressure that they're facing and say to them, yes, we believe in God. Yes, He wrote a Torah for you and me. And if you're not listening, then you're right? What are you doing? A lawyer calls you up and says, you just inherited $65 million, okay? From I don't know who. You say, I'm not worthy. Sorry, thank you very much. What would you say? Seriously, what kind of idiot would say I'm not worthy and just hang up the phone? You see what I'm saying? You just inherited the Torah from God Almighty. Why He chose you, we can have a different conversation about why He chose you. But you're chosen. Man up. Wear the jacket. Go up to the mound and bat already. You know what I mean? Don't sit there cowering, hiding in the stands.
You're missing your metaphor.
Yeah, pitch. Whatever. Throw the thing, Point is, where am I going with this? Folks? What? So you said something. Somebody just provoked me. When you said something.
Well, I said this whole this focus on age. I mean, I don't.
Oh, so what's it? So you're okay with Abraham living to 175 years old?
Yeah.
No. So I'm saying this. You're okay with God creating the world. You're okay with God creating the world. That's okay. But that he could let man live 175 years.
No, I'm saying the opposite. I say if you're not bothered by the fact that a man could live 175 years, 900 years, what are you getting so out of joint because it's a 3-year-old? I mean, I think time is
But it's
measured differently.
yeah, but
Exactly.
if you're living
That makes you feel better.
If you're living 900 years, a 3-year-old is very good. I don't know.
You split the sea. You're going to argue about whether
Throw in another miracle. All right, you know what I'm
whether
saying?
A 3-year-old girl can lift pictures. I mean, really.
That's
What's
exactly
amazing
my
is a
point.
3-year-old
That's exactly
what's
how.
amazing is
Add it to your
3-year-old
list of miracles. You know what I mean? Exactly. Finish. You know what I mean? It takes a little faith. You know that 1,000 years from now, they're going to say 6-day war never happened. Never happened. You're trying to tell me that in 75 minutes, the Israeli Air Force took out the Egyptian and the Syrian Air Force? Never. You believe in that, Baba Mesa? Seriously, you believe in that? You know what I mean? You see where I'm going with this. Anyways, but that's not even my point. My point is what I wanted to say is, and I just want to wrap up with this idea, is that what happens now is that he goes to the house of her father, and he begins to tell him the entire story from the beginning. Right? It's very interesting that the narrative is repeated in the Torah. There's all interesting discussion over there. But he tells it like this. I want to point out to you something very interesting in the repetition. He turned to 143. They offer him food in verse 33. He says, No, I'm not eating nothing. Not until I told you what I'm here for. He was worried that they were going to poison him to take his wealth, and that's exactly what they were trying to do, by the way. The angel actually switched the meal, so the guy that was trying to poison him ate the poisoned food, and he died. That's why the father-in-law disappears from the scene. Betuel just disappears because he just dies, drops dead. Here. Go to verse 41. Page 143, verse 41. Only thus will you be free of my oath if you approach my family and they do not give you a maid, and you will be released from my oath. He's telling him about the mission from Abraham, and he says, so I set out on my journey today. Ooh. Remember I told you how long it takes on Google Maps to walk? It takes 17 days, right? He says, so I set out on my journey today. Ooh. Took him 1 day to walk from Beersheba to Iraq. He must have been on JetBlue, right? He said, I set out on my journey today. As I said, I miraculously arrived today. He says, I arrived today at the spring, even though the journey from Hebron to here normally takes much more than 1 day. I said, oh God of my master Abraham, if you will crown this mission that I'm undertaking with success, here I am standing by the spring of water. Let it be that the maiden who comes out to drink water. He goes on to the whole story, and he tells him that, I made a prayer and I haven't finished my prayer, and she comes out and she does exactly, right? He's telling him about God's speed. He's telling him that the 17-day journey took 1 day. Why is this important? Why does he have to tell him this? It's an amazing thing, brother. It's something called kfitzas haderech, the jumping of the journey jumping. It's a concept known in Kabbalah. It's known as a miracle, which is experienced by certain righteous individuals. In fact, if you ever get to see Rabbi Krinsky, our grandfather, the Rebbe's chief of staff and personal secretary, was also the Rebbe's driver. He, there's an interesting story that he would take the Rebbe to the Ohel, to the great resting place of the Rebbe's father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, very, very, very often. One time they were coming back on Friday afternoon, and it was like 15 minutes to Shabbos and a 45-minute drive. So what are you going to do? So he tells the story that they were they got onto Francis Lewis Boulevard, which is right outside the Ohel, and they turned, and then he was on Eastern Parkway. And he was in Brooklyn, and he was like, it was like, whatever. It just kept on going. So it's like an interesting story,
You don't believe it.
Yeah, whatever. Listen, you see Rabbi Krinsky, ask him the story. He'll be in New York at the convention this week. He'll be there. So, hopefully he'll be there. So the question is, why is it that he needed to experience this jumping of the journey, this kfitzas haderech, and why does he need to tell the family about it? The reason is like this: that Rivka turns she comes of age. Now, okay, 3 years old, whether you want to call that 13 or 23, whatever you want to call it, I would not sweat that small stuff. She was old enough to carry a pitcher and to communicate and to be out there alone. She was obviously of age of being able to not have been a virgin. She was older, whichever you want to interpret it. Now, the moment she became of age is the day that Abraham found out by divine inspiration that this girl was available. And that's why he initiated this journey. That's why he sends Eliezer. He got the memo, right, that Rivka was of age and ready to marry, right? The moment that happened, he sends Eliezer out immediately. And when Eliezer sets out on a journey of the future of the Jewish people, Hashem needs to aid his journey to give him Godspeed, lightning success.
See,
Why is that?
Now, Godspeed does not mean in this.
I'm interpreting it in the literal sense, yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason is because, and I'm just going to carry on just a more moment, that he tells the family about it, right? He says, I left today because this matter is so incredibly urgent. There's no reason to delay. The family wanted to keep her there for a year. The family wanted her to wait there for a year with them. Give her time to get ready for the wedding. He said, no. This is extremely urgent, right? And that's why he told them about how the miracle of his speedy journey, because he wanted them to know that this was by divine intervention, how urgent it was that Rivka should marry Yitzchak. Because when the time comes for salvation to take place, it happens immediately. When the Jewish heir is ready to be born, as soon as the mother is of marriageable age, then you got to swoop down and come in without any delay. And the same thing, says the Rebbe, is going to be with the coming of Mashiach. We're going through this exile, and yes, it's taken a couple thousand years. We've been in this for like 1940-something years. We've been in this exile since the destruction of our second temple by the Romans, right? Feels like we've been around here for long enough, right? But when the moment of redemption comes, when the moment of maturity happens, it's going to happen like lightning speed. Just like the 17-day journey happens in one instant, and like a lightning strike. He comes in, he says, I got to take her today. She's going to come back today to Yitzchak. So it's going to be with the end of this exile. When we come to the point that Mashiach is ready to come, it's going to be that Hashem will hasten the redemption, that we won't even need to stay even one extra moment in this exile. Mashiach will come immediately. What that means to say is like this, the world is going crazy. I hear that Russia is opening up some sort of a military something in Libya. China is sending a warship something. U.S. is sending a nuclear submarine. Who knows? This is the stuff that they're telling us, right? Who knows what else is going on over there, right? The world is trembling in the Middle East. The world is trembling, right? We have 240-something hostages taken captive, and people are ripping down posters, and we're fighting valiantly and passionately for their survival. IDF soldiers are exhibiting more courage than any people in history have exhibited to descend into those terror tunnels. The lines are clearly drawn between hater and hated, between hated and hunted, and yet we, the victim, are accused of being the aggressor. We're the aggressor, right? We started this, says the head of Hezbollah, right? Israel has no right to defend herself, says Russia, right?
It's been happening in a vacuum.
Right, we have the world's great empathizers and leaders of human rights like Russia and Turkey and Iran and Hezbollah that are preaching to the world. The world is trembling.
And they're listening.
The world, exactly, and the world is trembling. And then you got that circus over there at the United Nations, man. We've got to tear that thing down and build condos. It'd be nice condos.
We should really not support it. I mean,
It's a joke. It's an absolute joke.
Every year.
So the idea here is that so what happens here is that this Mashiach is coming, folks. This is incredible stuff. I just want to remind you of the prophecy. I reviewed the prophecy again this Shabbos. And Yalkut Shimoni, the Medrash, says like this. I'm going to quote you the prophecy again. It says, when I'll read it to you. It's not Amos. It's Yalkut Shimoni. Sorry about that. Here it is. Rabbi Yitzchak said, the year that the King Mashiach will be revealed, all the nations of the world will be provoking each other. The king of Iran, the king of Persia, will provoke the king of Arabia. and the king of Arabia will go to Edom to the west to take counsel. But the king of Persia will in turn destroy the entire world. The nations of the world will be outraged and panic. They will all fall on their faces. They will experience pains like birth pangs. Israel too will be outraged and in a state of panic and ask, where do we go? But say unto them, my children, do not fear. The time of your redemption has come. And in the last redemption will be different from the first redemption, which was followed by further bondage and pain. After this last redemption, you will not experience any further pain or subjugation. We're experiencing the fulfillment. We're living this prophecy, folks. Talk about Iran, discussing destroying the world. Obviously, they don't destroy the world because the nations of the world are still trembling. If they did destroy the world, there'll be no one to trembling, right? But the fact that they're talking about trembling, the fact that this morning or last night, a U.S. nuclear submarine arrived in the Middle East, and that they're telling the world that? Why? Because there's conversations going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. There's obviously some serious saber rattling going on, right? And it's incredible. The world is trembling. We are at the precipice of the fulfillment of the coming of Mashiach. It's happening. And when it happens, it's going to happen in lightning speed.
When Mashiach comes under this situation, what happens? What happens? All of these enemies lay down their arms.
And they kiss the Jews?
Everyone.
The nations will beat their swords into plowshares.
What?
The nations will beat their swords into plowshares.
What does that mean?
Why would they do that? Why would they do that? It means because it's difficult for us to understand about the exact process. But my understanding of the process is that we will rise to higher consciousness in the sense that all people will see the truth. All people will see the truth. Think of the Jewish community today. Think of the rise in consciousness that's happening inside of the Jewish people today. Even very apathetic Jews today are becoming very passionate and committed Jews right now. So there's a rise in consciousness that's happening. Imagine if that spread around a few more layers. Imagine if it spread all the way through. I mean, maybe this rise of a nuclear, God forbid, attack, that would be enough to awaken the world to realize who the bad guys actually are, you know?
But my question is, if you're one of the bad guys, all of a sudden you have this epiphany.
You know, I don't know the answer to that question. It's an interesting discussion we should have. We should have Fabrengen about that. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what would happen, but perhaps there would be a charismatic world leader that rises that incredibly leads the world, gives an amazing speech. Imagine if somebody got up there today and gave an incredibly powerful and convincing speech. You there? Yeah. I'm sorry. What was that?
What is the physical attributes of Mashiach coming? I mean, do we all? I mean, are we suddenly all transported to the Garden of Eden?
No. The world doesn't change.
No.
The physical attributes, everything stays the same. Says the Rambam. The only thing that changes with the coming of the Mashiach is the fall of empires. That's it. The fall of empires, which means Iranian regime, Hamas regime, Hezbollah regime, North Korea, Russia, all the tyranny regimes, they all fall and the world becomes democratic peace. Yeah. So, but there's no miracles. But there's no miracles going on.
I thought there was the rising of the dead when Mashiach comes.
That's later.
So I just want to know whether I need to make up the spare bedroom.
Anyways, I better go, but I'm trying to read this comments here coming in. A few comments. Witty eggplant. Good morning. Thank you for this live stream. I wanted to study today, but got up at 4 a.m. getting food cooked for the day for my pregnant wife and 2-year-old. Cleaning tons before I go to work 10 hours. Thank you very much. Good to have you with us. Winston. Rivka was 14 when she married Isaac. She was 3 years old as a combined soul with Sarah. Interesting. From Judaism, stack exchange. I have no idea what that is. Sarah was reborn into the soul of Rivka at the Akedah right after Sarah's passing. Therefore, the Medrash calls her a 3-year-old at a wedding. Interesting that it's 3 years since she was born in Sarah's soul, which happened when she was physically 11. Interesting stuff. Rabbi, can you do something to block the ads for those of us who don't need to miss anything? I'm sorry. I didn't see the ads coming in today. I didn't see the ads coming in today. Terry, my apologies. And something just happened to my screen, so I don't even know what happened to my screen. My sincere apologies about the ads. Either way, everybody have a great day. Thank you once again for sharing those thoughts. Shalom.
Where's Winston from?
Indonesia.